Now, I'm not certain what's going on in Portland. This is a city that had a strong Antifa, and the first clip I'm going to show you is to remind you about what Antifa did to Portland. Now, these folks are now in the middle of a illegal immigration issue. Of course, I mean it's a major city, but there are two different voices that are going on there. You've got some that are all in on protecting criminals. You've got others that are trying to change that. And I thought I would show you that even when you've got a vast majority of folks that are voting for the insanity that is protecting criminals and allowing mostly peaceful protesters to destroy everything, that there are voices that are wanting to be heard when it comes to what's going on with these criminals and these people that are definitely not peaceful in any way, shape, or form. So let's let you hear this Antifa video. Howdy, y'all. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself.
Portland police announced today 12 people were arrested following that riot on the streets of Portland last night. Air 12 caught some of the destruction on the streets of downtown as it happened. Hundreds of Portland police officers and National Guard troops were called in to try to put a stop to it. After 2 hours prior, the group came from the North Park blocks and joined with those coming from Southeast Portland and marched peacefully for racial justice. A church in downtown Portland had to close its shelter and halt homeless services after it was targeted by rioters. They smashed out windows at St. Andre Bessette Church at Southwest 6th and Burnside last night around 7, and the church serves hundreds of homeless a day. Repairs were underway downtown throughout the day. We talked with one business owner who raced down just as soon as she heard what happened. She says she's upset for herself and her neighbors.
In a good year, I make around minimum wage, and I'm the owner. And I know that's true of all my fellow business owners here on the block, so it just kind of sucks.
Another business owner is dealing with a substantial damage there. His ATM was smashed during the riot. Fox 12's Brenna Kelly has his story from downtown Portland.
This is a corner market on Southwest 3rd and Burnside you're likely familiar with, Riverside Tobacco. Last night, a group of people who described themselves as anti-fascists took to the streets, and I watched as one person smashed the store's ATM.
We were prepared, but not to this point. We thought it would happen after midnight.
It was early evening. Downtown Portland stores and restaurants were open and serving customers last night when a group who describes themselves as Antifa started to march in the street. They quickly began smashing and tagging the windows of numerous businesses, including a church which serves the homeless. This is Riverside Tobacco, a market that's been here nearly 20 years.
I started this business from almost nothing. $200 in my pocket. I used to sleep in the basement for a few years until I got on my feet.
Owner Rafi Haza says he was targeted for a third time last night. Our cameras were rolling as someone destroyed his ATM. Here's the same view from Rafi's surveillance camera.
I'm not sure what they want. I don't know if they have goals. Why? I just wanted to ask that guy why. It's almost a stab in the guts, but there's no answers for it.
At the end of May, Rafi stood guard outside his business, which he felt deterred people looking to cause damage. Now he's looking to take things one step further.
I think I'm going to have to file for the concealed weapon and stand right in front of my door all the time at this point.
Rafi's shop has suffered from the riots and the pandemic. He says he's barely scraping by.
They're not ruining it for me. They're ruining it for these guys, for everybody else, the little guys that they work for minimum wage in this type of business.
The owner says he'll be out $7,000 to replace the ATM, and he won't be filing a report with police because he doesn't feel the person who did this will be caught. Reporting in downtown Portland, Brenna Kelly, Fox 12 Oregon.
So you heard that about the Antifa that was 4 years ago. This is the Democrat policies that were going on there. And Portland is still a pretty liberal area. But I'm going to put two clips up. The first clip is going to be from January 2025, right after President Trump got elected. And it's people talking about, oh, we want to protect the criminals. Well, the illegal immigrants. And they're criminals. So, and the second clip that I'm going to put up is a more recent clip. This happened just a few days ago. This was right after Pam Bondi announced a major drug bust that the DEA had that was cartel related, and these illegal immigrants. Well, during this, they're going to first go into the drug bust, but then they're going to go into, hey, there are people trying to change the sanctuary status, and it keeps getting blocked. So, let's let you hear both of these clips, and then we'll get into it a little bit more.
We are organizing right now, we are strategizing, and we are mobilizing.
The Augustana Lutheran Church in Northeast Portland is preparing to take on U.S. immigration and customs enforcement. After President Donald Trump announced wide-scale deportations, the church is once again teaming up with other faith-based organizations to keep immigrants in the country. Thanks for joining us for K2 News at 11. I'm Deborah Knapp. Now, a lot of anxiety for undocumented immigrants right now who may face deportation. And tonight we bring you the story of an immigrant who calls the Portland area home after fleeing El Salvador. The Augustana Lutheran Church pledging to protect him and countless others. K2's Thanvi Verma brings us this story. So Thanvi, how many people could face mass deportation?
Well, Deb, according to a 2016 American Immigration Council report, almost 90,000 Oregon citizens live with a family member who is undocumented. They make up about 40% of Oregon's farming, fishing, and forestry workforce. Now, it's unclear who the federal government is going to be targeting for deportations. Nonetheless, people are fearful. Here is Francisco Aguirre's story. Francisco Aguirre can't sleep very well these days. The thought of being deported keeps him up at night.
I can't imagine leaving my kids behind.
Aguirre says he came to the United States from El Salvador when he was just a teenager.
I flee the violence there because my life, was in danger. And if I stay, I will get killed. My relatives got killed back in El Salvador, and I did not have any other choice to just run away one day when I can,
After years of making the United States his home, he was faced with deportation yet again. That's where Pastor Mark Knutson with the Augustana Lutheran Church comes in.
And I got the phone call saying Francisco Aguirre's house is surrounded by ICE. This is 2014. Can we bring him to Augustana? It's the only safe place in Oregon we know. I said, of course.
The pastor calls this place a sanctuary. It sure was a sanctuary for Aguirre, who slept under the altar for his first couple of nights.
The idea was if ICE were to dare to breach this sacred space, this holy ground, and violently drag a man out of this church, with all the cell phones today and technology, even back 10 years ago, 2014, can you imagine the pictures of a man being dragged out of a church?
This church is even equipped with its own alarm system.
And the plan was if ICE came into this church, we would ring the bell.
Now that President Donald Trump is in office, there are many reasons the Augustana Lutheran Church community is on their toes. President Trump's executive order titled Protecting the American People Against Invasion says, it is the policy of the United States to faithfully execute the immigration laws against all inadmissible and removable aliens, particularly those aliens who threaten the safety or security of the American people. A reporter asked President Trump when we can expect ICE raids to happen. Here's what he said.
I don't want to say when, but it's going to happen. Has to happen, or we're not going to have a country left.
That's why Pastor Knutson is intent on organizing.
You'll see this church overflowing with leaders from the community, everyday people here to stand in solidarity. That's going to send a message to this administration that we in Oregon are not going to go for this.
The pastor says the alternative is a death sentence, something Aguirre knows all too well. His son Moses was so scared of being deported that he went back to El Salvador with the help of his family. Aguirre had no idea that his drive to the airport would be the last time he would see his son.
Moses shot to death. He was playing soccer, and there was guys that they jump the fence.
If there are mass deportations of undocumented immigrants, the greater Portland area is going to look different.
We have some caring for elders, and if they were to be snapped up at a restaurant, who's going to come home to that elder who's in a bed with nobody to care for them? Who's going to know they're there?
While we wait, Aguirre still works towards his dream.
And I hope one day I will be the pastor that it help the community unite, to bring the world God, to unite people and create peace for everybody.
We reached out to Republican lawmakers in the state of Oregon to get their thoughts on what's happening, and we did not hear back. In one of Trump's new executive orders, his administration threatens to withhold funding from sanctuary jurisdictions that, quote, seek to interfere with the lawful exercise of federal law enforcement operations. Again, it's unclear what this will actually look like in practice and what, if at all, the courts will have to say. At the live desk, Tanvi Verma, K2 News.
Tanvi, thank you.
The head of this organization, Sinaloa organization, here in the country illegally, 6 of these guys and women here in the country illegally. His name is Alberto Salazar Amaya. He is the leader, and he was living in Salem, Oregon.
A months-long investigation spanning 5 states ends with more than a dozen arrests and a record-breaking seizure of 3 million fentanyl pills. That's the largest in DEA history. The alleged leader of that drug ring, an undocumented immigrant deported twice before he was arrested in Salem. In all, federal agents also seized nearly $5 million in cash, the majority of that seized in Salem, along with high-end jewelry and luxury vehicles. They say the bust gives us a glimpse into the high-rolling lifestyle built on poison.
This was an incredible operation, and that's why I wanted all of you here behind me. It took months and months of work, investigation, leading up to smaller buys, smaller cases, to get this massive amount of drugs and guns off our streets.
The bust in Salem was just one element of so-called Operation Take Back America. The feds say the mission dismantled one of the largest and most dangerous fentanyl networks in American history. And DEA's acting administrator, Robert Murphy, called it a, quote, battlefield victory against what he described as a terrorist-backed network.
They are flooding our cities with a weapon of mass destruction, fentanyl. And when we catch you, like all of these individuals, if convicted, we will put you behind bars, there will be no negotiating, and we will lock you up for as long as humanly possible. The top guy who I keep pointing to, he insulated himself. He was in Oregon. He had no drugs on him, but he was the leader. He had millions of dollars. He had a Mercedes. He had a truck. He had other things, but he did not have any drugs on him because he was the leader. And that's what these cartels do, whether it's Sinaloa, whether it's MS-13, whether it's TDA. The highest leaders insulate themselves.
Now, along with the millions of fentanyl pills, investigators say the amount of cash seized in Salem alone, more than $2.8 million, makes it one of the largest busts in the history of Pacific Northwest. 16 people are now facing federal charges, including conspiracy to distribute fentanyl. 6 of those arrested are not U.S. citizens. Now, the alleged ringleader, Alberto Salazar Amaya, is one of them. He's facing immigration-related charges as well. So, is the plan to deport him again? Well, AG Bondi says if he's convicted, she has other plans.
they're also part of a major drug trafficking ring in Mexico. So sending them back to Mexico to continue on with their drug business isn't going to happen under this administration. And I want them to stay in our prisons as long as possible. I've no desire to send them back to Mexico because they were coming across our border illegally. No longer will they be able to do that. But the amount of drugs, the amount of money, the amount of weapons, most of these individuals, if convicted, will remain in American prisons. Perhaps Alcatraz.
Republican lawmakers in Salem were quick to jump on the opportunity to blast Democrats for Oregon's sanctuary status for undocumented immigrants. Representative Jeff Helfrich wrote, "Oregon should immediately end our sanctuary state policies and work with federal law enforcement to deport these dangerous criminals and stop the flow of drugs over our border." House Minority Leader Christine Drazen chimed in, saying, "Today should be a wake-up call that if we don't modernize our sanctuary state laws, Oregon will continue to be a haven for dangerous criminals instead of taking them off our streets." Now, Oregon was the first state in the nation to pass a sanctuary law back in 1987, prohibiting local and state agencies from helping federal immigration efforts. It's been strengthened a few times since then and seems untouchable in the halls of the Capitol. So how are GOP-led efforts going this session when it comes to modernizing sanctuary laws in Oregon? As you might imagine, not so great. We searched the legislature's website for any bills with the phrase federal immigration and found 5 of them. There they are. A few have sister bills in the opposite chamber, but they read the same. Republicans are chief sponsors on all 5 bills, and here's where they stand now. Senate Bill 486 would fully repeal Oregon's sanctuary status and allow the use of public resources to enforce immigration laws. It was introduced when session began, referred to a committee a few days later, and has gone nowhere since. Senate Bill 1041 would require police to notify immigration officials if they arrest an undocumented person for fentanyl-related crimes. It was introduced in the middle of February, sent to committee, and gone nowhere since. Senate Bill 491 is a little more broad. It requires police to notify ICE if they arrest an undocumented person for, quote, delivery or manufacture of a controlled substance. It was introduced when session began, referred to committee a few days later, and you guessed it, has gone nowhere. Senate Bill 11 directs police to ask someone if they are a U.S. citizen if the person is being arrested for a crime and has a gun. If they are not a U.S. citizen, police would be required to call ICE. That bill also was introduced when session began, referred to a committee a few days later, and it remains on the shelf. And finally, House Bill 3551, we told you about this one back in February. Well, it would give law enforcement the option to call immigration officials if an undocumented person is convicted of certain crimes, including violent felonies, felony sex offenses, or Class A misdemeanors, things like reckless driving and DUI. Now, that bill was sent to committee in early February and has gone nowhere since. None of the bills we just told you about have any hearings on the horizon, meaning they stand little chance in the remaining month and a half of Oregon's legislative session. So, what is going through your mind after learning about the DEA arrest down in Salem or the anti-sanctuary bills in front of the legislature? Should Oregon stay as it is, sanctuary-wise? Why or why not? Email us the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090.
It's not even amusing what goes on in places like Portland. Here's a city that keeps getting destroyed because people want to allow criminals to not get justice. That happens all over America. My question to you is, what's your opinion? Now, you might disagree with me. You may call these people, this cartel leader that they busted in Salem, you probably consider them poor refugees that are trying to run from bad situations and whatnot. And I feel bad for that one father. But here's the thing. If you're having problems in your country, you're supposed to work towards changing your country, not come to another country like that unless it's just pure violence. I mean, you take a look at the Afrikaners that they just brought in here. They're actually being wiped out. It's well known, unless you listen to the lies, it's well known that they're getting killed. It's well known what's happening to them. Whereas these Hispanic folks are not coming here because of any actual danger most of the time. Most of the time, they're coming here because, well, we offered them welfare. And they're also being exploited by companies they're working under the table and whatnot, if they're even working, because those millions of people that came in under Biden, no, they aren't working. And because of this, we've got a problem where American citizens are going homeless. Veterans are dealing with this. Non-veterans are dealing with this. Basically, we're spending way too much money on way too many things, and it needs to come to an end. Now, am I saying that we shouldn't allow in people to help them or allow people to come in that are willing to work? No. I am saying that we need to enforce our immigration laws, get ourselves to the point that we are back without so much debt. I mean, it's sad when you get to the point that $50 billion not being borrowed is a major miracle, which is what just happened. They borrowed $50 billion less last month. That's a miracle. Oh, that's a great thing. Here's the problem. How about we get our budget to the point that we're not borrowing money all the time? How about we start paying off some of our debt? Like, let's not have China own our debt. Let's not have all these other countries that don't like us own our debt. But that's the way people want to do things. I don't, and I'm certain that there are others that don't. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. So, folks, that's the story that I wanted to bring you on this video. And I just wanted to say thank you again for coming by. Well, hit like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff if you don't mind. Help me out. So, y'all have a good day now. Bye.